it's been a great love in my, ever since I was a little boy, you know, ever since I could reach the piano and I tried to get a tune out of the piano. And my ideas of a child was to be a band leader, you know, and because my real name is Dorsey, and I wanted to be like a Jimmy Dorsey, you know, playing the saxophone, and that was my dreams, you know. But it didn't materialize, but they were my dreams at that particular time. So I started taking lessons on the saxophone when I was 11 years old, and I finished playing the sax when I was 17, when I started singing semi-professionally in the small clubs. My mother was quite unique. She was a beautiful lady who could play the violin, and she had this kind of operatic voice that could shatter windows and shake chandeliers, and I think that's where I thank you, Mother, for the power that I've got in my voice today. I think I got from Mum. Yeah, music dominates my life. It really does. I'm always thinking about what my next project is, and I'm always thinking about how to change my shows and what my next record is going to be like, and the kind of music I'm going to use on it. So it really dominates my life. It's a great. I mean, I love to play golf. Golf is my first, you know, I love as a game now. It used to be tennis and racquetball and you know, water skiing, and snow skiing. But now I stick to golf because there is limited time in what I do, because my touring takes up most of my life, you know. And I'm always in a different country, in a different place, and it's easier to get on a golf course than it is to find a gym or a tennis court, whatever it is. So that's what I do. But I'm always thinking about my music, you know, and with even with the song, the totally amazing song that I have written with my daughter, and the title has been in my mind for 4 years. Then all of a sudden, you know, I spoke to her and her young man, and we all three of us got together and we started to put this song together, because everybody uses that expression. Oh, it's totally amazing. So as soon as somebody says it, they'll think of my song, I hope, you know, and say, if they say totally amazing, oh, totally amazing, you know. It's a very happy song. It's my songs are a lot of my songs are very sad, and it relates to a lot of people, because people sometimes, you know, I like to have storylines in my music that can relate to people's experiences, and the nice part about it is, well, I feel once you've heard a story that relates to something you've experienced, it's like a release valve. It gets rid of that, you know, weird feeling that you might have, and it goes away, because you know somebody else has it as well. You know, you're not the only one, and that's I think is a good point in my music. But this one is kind of up tempo, and it gets you stamping your feet and clapping your hands, which is great. You know, I've recently done this a tour of Southeast Asia, and I went to countries I'd never went to before, and you know, I've been in the business over the 3 decades, so but not to go to a country is kind of unusual for a performer who has been lucky enough to get a global career right from the beginning. You know, I mean, Release Me was my first song, and it really did give me a global career. Around the world, it went to #1. And so constantly after that, my record companies released my albums all over the world. And so it gave me that wonderful experience of being able to travel to these countries, you know, and visiting them. Now, this Southeast Asia tour, I visited India, Sri Lanka, I've never been to before. We went to Bombay, which is Mumbai, and Delhi and Calcutta, you know, Singapore, Hong Kong. Did I say Hong Kong? I did, didn't I? I go over sometimes. I've been to so many places, you know. But it was quite an experience. We did it for the tsunami benefit, and being in those countries and knowing these people know my music and sing the songs with me. Wow, that's powerful. It really is powerful to know that thousands and thousands of miles away, people know your music and speak another language and can still sing your music. I went into a small club, and it was a working man's club, And I was 17 years old, and I wasn't supposed to drink, but I had a pint of beer, and I took this pint down, and it gave me a good feeling. And everyone was getting up and singing, so I got up and I sang. And I got a standing ovation. You know, people came up and said, "Who's your agent?" I said, "I don't have an agent. I'm not in show business." But you see, I'd already started my life at that particular time by priming myself by doing things in front of the mirror, or singing with the radio and records and things like that. So I'd primed myself and I was ready. So when this little moment came along, I gave it my all, and they thought I was a professional. But I hadn't even started. Yeah, and that was the start of my career. Then I went and found out what key I sang in. I liked what they were doing to me. I started to give me this, and I never got that playing the saxophone. So I decided to learn what key I sang in, and I started playing those little clubs, and that was my apprenticeship in the business. And from there to now. My birth name is Arnold George Dorsey. Then I changed it to Jerry with a G, and then I was fairly successful in England with the Jerry in my early 20s, and then just after I came out of the service, then all of a sudden I got tuberculosis, and my career hit the dirt, and I had to start all over again. And you know, having that, it was like having a dreadful disease in those days. But thank God, you know, he looked after me, and he said, "You've got more work to do in this world." And my life went on, and I couldn't get back as Jerry. So then I'd met Gordon Mills, who was managing Tom Jones. I'd met him earlier on. We were friends before then. And he said, "I think we better change your name." So changed it to Engelbert, and the rest is history. Everyone calls me Eng now, E-N-G-E, because that's the first four letters of my new name. And so Eng has been like with me for over 3 decades, and I'm kind of used to it now, you know. And Gordon was responsible for making me what I am, because he took this young man from Leicester and made him a world name, which was quite fantastic. And I was very thrilled with that. And he was my best friend. And then we parted company in 1976 because I felt that, you know, he wasn't giving me the attention he was giving the other guy. Man, believe me, my honest opinion is that he liked him better, I suppose, than he liked me, maybe. But for me, Mr. Tom Jones is probably one of the greatest singers in the world, and I'm a fan. So, you know, so it was his choice, and I just parted and went my own way. But he was quite a genius, Gordon Mills.
You're doing approximately 100 shows a year right now.
Mm-hmm.
How long can that continue? And
well, as long as the people, my career is my life. It is my life. I enjoy working. I enjoy singing, and while I've got that fan base out there that still want to see me, I want to keep going. You know, maybe when God calls me, it will all come to an end. But until then, I think I just want to keep going. I regret it in a way. I would like to have made a few movies, you know, and because with a performer, you're in the minds of the people for the day, for the week, or so, maybe a little longer. And then it sort of disappears, you know, if you do a great show. But if you do a movie, it's in their minds for posterity, because you can keep rewatching it. You can't make that show happen again. But thank God we do DVDs now, because that's the only way people can get to see your performance on a regular basis, you know. I did a television commercial over in England, and it was a beer commercial, and it was quite funny. You know, it was with a very famous comedian over there, and we just had a wonderful time filming it, and it's great. It's another little jump start in your career, and it gives you a little kick, a little lift, and and puts you in the public eye a lot more because they're seeing you a lot more and saying, oh, he's still around. Sometimes you don't get home that often, and therefore, people just seem to think you disappeared off the scene. And of course, a commercial will bring you back, and a new record brings you back, a DVD brings you back, and you have to keep telling the people that you're still around, and I try to do that. I'm a very ambitious person, that's one thing, and not stubborn enough. I'm a Taurus, the bull, but I'm not argumentative. I don't like arguments and things like that. But I do like people who have a true professional approach to life, and I hate people who are lackadaisical and just don't do things in a very slipshod way. I enjoy totally professional approach to life, and I would say that I am sympathetic towards situations, and I am benevolent because of my charitable work, and I'm quite a loving husband. Yeah, and I love my kids, and I love people. I really do. I love people. I love them. I don't like to be a loner. I enjoy being with people. I really do.
Performance is about you singing and the audience listening. If you had to say something to your audience, how much do you appreciate what they've been with you for 3 decades?
And more, yeah.
What does it mean to you?
Well, it means an awful lot, because you see, I've been, ever since I first started my career and the first fan club began. It happened, the first fan club was in England, and then that was a big one, and then the big one started in New York, and it just started to, to spread, and every which way you turned, there was a fan club growing in this city, in another city, in another state, in another state, another state, and then it started to spread around the world, in Japan, Korea, Australia, everywhere, Jamaica, unusual countries. You'd think, where are the, how do these people know all this about me? But the fan base started, and they sent out all those newsletters, and that's how it all began. And to this day, I have a very big fan club base, which is, they're like your cheerleaders in the audience, and they start the whole ball rolling. And when I look out in the audience, many times I see faces I've seen many times. I recognize them. Now when I go out the stage door, I can say hello to them, and by name sometimes I can name them, because the fan club presidents who decorate my dressing room, they come back to see me. So when you do it time and time again, you get into the habit of remembering faces, remembering names, and you point them out. Say hi, you remember their names, you say by name. In the early days, I used to send a decoy out. Like I used one of my first music directors was Laurie Holloway, who's a very big name in England right now, on television. And Laurie was my music director, and he would put a coat over his head and rush out, and they'd tear him to pieces before he gets to the limo, and I go out another door. Lovely stories like that, I don't mean to try to avoid the fans, but sometimes you've got an appointment that you have to keep, and you can't stand out there signing a lot of autographs when you got to go somewhere else. But I do appreciate the fact that they do wait for me, and it's quite an honor to know that they're that loyal, that they would wait for hours for me.
How many autographs have you signed?
Oof, I don't know. I mean, I've just released a book, my autobiography, and I did book signing in several places, including Harrods in London, and I sat down, I signed for 4 hours, asking their names and this, and so, a couple of thousand books, it's hard. It's hard to keep writing this long name. Gordon, why did you do that to me? Everyone's released autobiographies. Now, I thought, if somebody else writes my story, they're going to write things that are not correct. And of course, I've had quite an eventful life. I've been a naughty boy several times, but my wife, who's stood by me all this time, you know, I think she realized it was that little boy growing up in me, and just let it go. And she said, "Why don't you write the book?" And it was her persuasion that made me write the book and put everything down. And of course, she also wrote a paragraph in it, which was quite wonderful. And she's a wonderful, wonderful lady, and I'm very lucky to have somebody like that. I met my wife in a dance hall in Leicester, and at the Palais Dance in Leicester. And she was like, she was about 16, I think. And I was she was about to turn 17. And I just came out of the service, and I went over there and I saw this tanned young girl with short bubbly hair, and very bright colors that she was wearing showed her tan off. And I kept looking at her, and I didn't want to go and ask her because I was very shy. And then I asked my friend, I said, "Go and ask that girl if she'll dance with me." And he went over and asked her. So she said, "Tell him to come and ask me himself." So eventually I did, and I danced with her, and then boom.
Can you tell us about your family?
My family, I've got 3 boys and a girl. My daughter Louise is a songwriter and a singer. She sang on stage with me many times. And my son Bradley is a singer. He's a songwriter. He's been on stage with me too. And I sort of gave them that experience, you know, to come on stage and play to an audience that is, you know, that knows them by name because they're my children. And they did very well. But I had to cut the umbilical cord and say, you have to do your own thing, because that's the only way you'll make a name for yourself. You know, you can't do it on my coattail or anything like that. Not that I wouldn't want to help them a lot, but I think that's the way life should be. You should do your own thing, get started that way, and then you don't have to worry. You know you've made it by yourself. And that's how I did it, and I want them to do the same thing. And my son Jason, who is my eldest boy, he lives in Vegas, and he has 2 children and 2 boys. And my son Scott lives in Australia. And at the beginning of many years ago, when I ran out of management, he managed me for a few years and did very well. But there again, I had to cut the cord and let him go his own way. And now he lives in Australia and going quite well for himself. But they've got Daddy in case they're in trouble. I live on both sides of the Atlantic. I live in England. I also live in LA. It's a new place to live, and it's got new scenery. I live on the top of a mountain. It's just so beautiful. Living in LA is close to my work, so you know it's. And I'm a world traveler, so living in LA is quite convenient, you know. But I do enjoy my home in England very, very much, and I try to get there as much as I possibly can. You know, I was in the service, and I started to ride motorcycle in the service, and I was a dispatch rider, you know, so I learned how to handle a motorcycle. So when I did and could afford to buy a motorcycle, I did. And of course it was a Harley, because I do enjoy riding and leisurely, you know, and smelling the roses as you go along, and not you know, tight knuckles and white knuckles, or just belting along. That's not me. I just love to just ride and take the place of a car, and I do that frequently when I'm riding in England or when I'm riding in Los Angeles. Cars are they were important to me, and you know, when I first started to make a little money, I thought, you know, you have to have many cars and this and that. So when I first got successful, I started to collect Rolls Royces, and I had about 14 at the time of different kinds of Rolls Royces, you know, and old ones, you know, Rolls that belonged to people like Pierpoint, who was a hangman in England, and also Princess Margaret's Rolls, and a few other, you know. But that was at that time, and after a few years of them standing in the garage, I decided to disperse with all that. Just keep a couple of cars. You can only drive one at a time. So I've got a couple of cars now, but one is a Rolls and one is a Jag. It is nice to have a nice wine collection. I've been drinking wine for a long, long time. It is a lovely way to spend an evening, and I enjoy them, and I collect them. It's just my wife and I now. My wife and I lived on both sides of the Atlantic together because, the children have grown up and they do their own thing, and I don't have that responsibility anymore. Thank God, but they're good kids. They've done well. I could have sang rock and roll at the beginning because I used to sing rock. I had a rock band to start off with, but Gordon was wise. He kept Tom Jones on the rock, and he kept me on the ballad. And because my very first song was a ballad, so it stamped my style. It got people used to me singing that kind of music, and I had some massive hits, like The Last Waltz and Release Me and There Goes My Everything, and it's just one ballad after another, and it was quite wonderful to be known as as a romantic singer. And love is what makes the world go round, and it had its cycle of not being so much in the limelight, but I think everything has a cycle, then it's come around again, thank God, and the romantic songs are back in vogue, and they go out for a few years and come back again. So you have to go along with that. You just can't think that you're going to stay with those romantic songs all the time. You just have to go along with it and take the rough for the smooth. And if you don't have a hit, you don't have a hit. Just keep pumping until you do. And that's what I do. And I just keep pushing till the right song comes along. Is that a song title? Yeah. I will say to all of you, thank you for supporting me all these many, many years, and for being my friend. I appreciate that, and sticking by me. I'll do the best I can with the tools I've got for the sake of conviviality. I got you.